Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you to episode number 64 of the Primetime Rundown right here on the Eastern Observer. Our show is presented to you by Black Cats NYC. Alongside my guys, Rob DeLuca and Mike Zavo, I'm Joey Jarzynka. Ian Schraier has the second week off. He is down in Ocean City, Maryland, enjoying a week off with his wife and daughter. So, Ian, we really hope that you have a great second week off, and we hope to see you back next week here on our show, obviously. Mike Zabo, thank you so much for filling in for the aforementioned Ian Schraier. How are you?
Doing great, Joey. Thanks for inviting me here once again. Great, always great to be with you and talking sports.
There's no doubt, absolutely, and we've got so much to talk about. Rob DeLuca, we'll get to the NHL later on, but how are things with you personally? Looks like we may have lost Rob DeLuca. We'll see if we can get him. Oh, okay, we've got him back on. DeLuca, how are things where you are? Down in Seaside.
Well, as you see, the Wi-Fi has not changed whatsoever, even though we paid for more speed today. So clearly we're getting ripped off here left and right here in Seaside Park. Optimum, you're the worst. But what we are as a show here is the best. Got Mike here filling in for Ian. Always great to have him here. We've got Evan Winter coming on to talk some NFC South. It's going to be a phenomenal show.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it, ladies and gentlemen. 8:30 Eastern time, we will be welcoming the lead writer of the Bucs Report for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and also a good friend of ours, Evan Winter, to the show. Be sure to send in some questions later on about anything Tampa Bay Bucs as well as the rest of the NFC South. So, again, folks, our show is presented to you by Black Cats NYC. Be sure to purchase their newest album, Free Cake, which is out now. Play loud on Apple Music, Deezer, YouTube, SoundCloud, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, Pandora, and Spotify. Also, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to listen to us and subscribe to us on Google Play, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. And also be sure to search us on YouTube at I-95 Sports Network. Guys, let's get things started here. Just 3 minutes past the top of the hour here on the East Coast. Guys, Major League Baseball, Field of Dreams is happening in about 3 days in Dyersville, Iowa. And for those that have never watched the movie Field of Dreams, I got to tell you, you're all missing out. Mike Zabo, you have not watched it.
Now, it is on the list. I'll eventually get to it. I'll probably get to it before Thursday.
Joey, how could you have someone on this show who has never seen the greatest baseball movie in history?
Well, I'll tell you this. Let me tell you this, though. This is big because our old host in Nick Partain, I remember, I'll never forget it, when it was first announced last year, he was still a host on the show, and he was a big opposer to it. I never understood why he was an opposer to it, because you're now putting a movie that people have seen, and I won't ruin it for Mike here so he can really see the Kevin Costner hit, with having no spoilers, if you will. But in my opinion, this is one of the coolest things. You're now seeing a movie that is supposed to be fictional really turn into real life, and you're playing on the field that the movie was shot on. How cool is that, DeLuca?
I think it's phenomenal. I think it's going to be one of the greatest spectacles that baseball fans have gotten in the last 5 years, bare minimum. So it's going to be great for baseball. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I'm surprised they don't make it a whole series rather than just one game.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been interesting, but I mean, I guess there's probably some logistics to that where.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you this, though. I like the logistics part, exactly what DeLuca said. But in my opinion here, in terms of having
Chicago
a whole series.
So the White Sox just going to have to.
Yeah, so ladies and gentlemen.
No, I don't.
Ladies and gentlemen, hold on one second, DeLuca. So your Wi-Fi is cutting in and out. So we're going to do the best we can here with you to try and, keep everything going on here. Please repeat yourself for the fans that are watching out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, once again, parents, if you're watching this, fix this, please. Nonetheless, no, this is great for baseball. It's one of the greatest spectacles we're going to see for the sport in probably the last 5 years minimum. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. While I do think it should have been a series, there's probably some sort of logistics about needing to play the game, a couple games in Chicago, something like that. So that's probably the issue there.
Well, the thing now with me, and this is one thing that I'm not really a fan of, is having a whole series there. And I think personally, the reason why they wouldn't have the series there is because that allure.
Nonetheless, this is going to be exciting. And
right. Yeah, exactly. And again, the Wi-Fi bumped out there, so I rudely interrupted DeLuca there. But the bottom line here is that with the Field of Dreams game, there's no doubt in my mind that if you have more than one game, I'm sorry. I have to interrupt this here. 1 second. So I think Mr. DeLuca has heard you not even asking, I think telling him to fix this Wi-Fi. Parents, fix this.
Oh, he heard. No, I'm glad they heard. Because we're getting ripped off down here. We paid for more speed and it got worse.
So, Mr. DeLuca there, you see your son's having a hard time down at your other place down south. My goodness.
I'm just trying to put on a professional manner here. We're just
But
trying to I got a ring light. I've got everything I could possibly need except the Wi-Fi speed. It's just a debacle at this point. I'm just trying to enjoy my summer while trying to be professional and do this show at the same time.
Going back to the Field of Dreams game though, the allure of having it for 3 consecutive games, I think that's the part where you only want to make it 1, but also I'm sure that in the CBA or anything along those lines, and something that was agreed upon, is that you still have to play 2 more games in Chicago. And I think that's the part where really people have to understand that, is that you're playing 1 game on that turf, or on that natural grass, rather, in the cornfields, if you will. And I think if you were to play more than 1, you're losing that. I think you want it to happen again, but you don't want it to be consecutive, because let's just say it turns out bad, which I personally don't think it will. I think it's going to be phenomenal. You want it to just be once, get a test run, and then next year, maybe you can try and do something different at a different site. Mike Szabo, what are your thoughts, especially since you have not seen the Kevin Costner film?
I can agree with that point. The allure might be lost in a whole 3-game set. I think the only problem with the game is that, especially on the Yankees side of things, you lose a little bit of the allure because they just have such an injury problem right now. Anthony Rizzo would have been a huge thing to market, going back to Chicago after just getting traded and going over there, probably seeing a couple of people that he obviously played against, a little bit here and there, or knew from the White Sox people, or just, I think he grew up in Chicago, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Or he might know people there. He was there for a long time, I believe close to a decade. So, a sort of homecoming for him. Could have marketed that. I think kind of lost out on that. In fact, the Yankees have so many injuries right now, even if they win it probably takes away a little bit of the star power.
Yeah, and you know what? Something else that we want to bring up here is the jerseys, the uniforms. And for those that are listening via audio, take a peek on Twitter and search Field of Dreams game. You'll be able to see all of the uniforms there for the White Sox and for the Yankees. Now, I think just by looking at this here, guys, you're able to see Aaron Judge on the right. Also Chicago White Sox on the left, obviously, and you're able to see how old school this really looks. Again, I am always about having these, whatever is old now becomes new. We get to see so many things that really have revived, right? We've seen on television, we've seen, the big saying, what is old is now new. We get to see on TV, for instance, game shows, right? You get to see Press Your Luck, for instance, Match Game make a return. You've got so many things now, and now you're beginning to see certain things like this. Let's be honest here, ladies and gentlemen. I personally believe, now looking into the hockey side of things, why not? Who says no to having things going on at the 1980 Miracle on Ice site in Lake Placid? Why not? Hey, listen,
Joey,
I think
great site.
Yeah, Joey, it's a great site. It could work. The National Women's Hockey League used it for their bubble season last year, and it was I would call it a success, but they didn't even finish a 2-week season, so can't really call it that. But the setup for it was beautiful. The rink looked great. All the fan cutouts, all the aside from COVID literally infiltrating the bubble and ending their season 2-week season early.
Yeah.
The idea of it was great. So I think it absolutely should be run that way. And that's the way. There's no reason the NHL couldn't pull something off, especially now with us on the back end of this pandemic. Can actually fill those seats with real people as opposed to cutouts. It would be a phenomenal spectacle.
Right.
Definitely something a sport of hockey would greatly benefit from.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And I would not be surprised. And this something here for all the baseball fans here. And of course, my man, Brian Morales, Director of Media Relations from Wagner College. All good things ahead with B, of course. He has a little comment here saying the Field of Dreams All-Stars might fare better than the current Yankees against the White Sox in that game. He's not wrong. He's not wrong on that. And then also, it looks like he got it in a couple of minutes late, or maybe I'm just seeing this comment a little bit late. DeLuca, cred with the ring light, but still need the step and repeater banner, my guy. Yes, that one's actually should be said to me. That one I still have to order for him. But in terms of the Field of Dreams game, though, this is probably the best thing that we have seen Rob Manfred do in his short tenure as commissioner of Major League Baseball. It has been a legitimate disaster for him. It's been a legitimate disaster for the Manfred administration. All of these new rules that have come into play, all of these modernizing, progressive type, baseball in, post, not only post-pandemic, but also, really in the 21st century game. Things at the time, I remember saying this on this show, that the game of baseball is dying. And it really was the truth when you look at some of the numbers of the viewership. And we got to see it, we got to see it a few years ago when teams were unable to even get over 20,000 people in the stands. Now we're beginning to see these little, these things where Field of Dreams comes in and taking a playbook out of hockey, really, because you get to see hockey was in Lake Tahoe last year. They were in Yankee Stadium. They've been in Fenway Park, etc. The list goes on. This is a massive kudos to Major League Baseball and to Rob Manfred for being able to get this done. And that series will start on Thursday. That should be 8 o'clock on Fox. That's going to be a nationally televised game. They have a day off on Friday, and then they will continue that 3-game set Saturday and Sunday because obviously they have to do the travel from Dyersville, Iowa. The first Major League Baseball game to ever be played in Iowa, by the way, will commence on Thursday, and then they head back to Guaranteed Rate Field in Chicago, South Side. Too used to saying U.S. Cellular Field, but they lost that contract a little while ago. Mike, I want to go right to you. It's a perfect segue with Anthony Rizzo being on the COVID IL. Most likely will be returning on the 18th of August. DeLuca and I will be seeing him. We expect there that night. We hope to, obviously. From what Aaron Boone has said, he does have some mild symptoms. It looks to be on the right path, on his recovery. But he's out. Luke Voigt came back yesterday. The Yankees fell in the game against Seattle. They were looking for that 4-game sweep. They've won 18 of their last 26, best in Major League Baseball. The Yankees are on an upswing here. The three of us are all Yankees fans, and we don't have to see Ian rolling his eyes while hearing, while talking about the Yankees. So this is a great panel, obviously, for the three of us to talk about the Yankees. Mike Zabo, I want to start with you. Ever since the trade deadline, what have you seen aside from Gallo, Rizzo? I don't even want to include Andrew Heaney in there because he's been a legitimate disaster. But those two, really, they've really come to play. And this team is almost invigorated by those acquisitions.
Well, that's exactly what Brian Cashman wanted, if not the impact of those two big bats coming in, at least that it's going to invigorate everybody else and get everybody else going and getting out of some of players who are having offensive slumps, whether it was coming into the deadline or for most of the season. So if not for, bringing Gallo and Rizzo in, for just their own offensive performances and boost the team, the hope was to invigorate everybody else, and it sort of has. I think there's been an urgency delivered into the locker room that, the calendar's turning to August. It's time for us to start making up some ground in the division. And you can especially see that the way that Aaron Boone manages games, where he's throwing some guys out there, maybe some high leverage relievers before Chapman went on the IL, or Green or Britton or whatnot, putting them in instead of sort of like being at a point in the game where, okay, we're done. We've thrown out our best strategy. It's not working. We'll just come back again tomorrow. I highlight the game where a couple weeks before the deadline where they were in Boston and they had that absolute horrible collapse where they lost and they gave up a 3-0 lead or a 3-1 lead going into the ninth, and they wind up losing in extra innings.
Yes.
And it's like, all right, Chad Green was your best reliever. He didn't have it. But the problem was, what was the strategy? You put in Brooks Kriske, like when you still thrown in Zach Britton or something like that. It sort of was just like a move. Okay, we're just punting it. Hopefully Kriske can get us the 3 outs. If not, well, we'll just, play again tomorrow. And it seems like from those moves until what you see now is a complete change in the mindset of Boone, and that's carried out to the rest of the team, that they need to be more urgent, play more urgent, and start racking up some wins. And it's shown in the standings.
And something else too that we've been able to see as well. We got to listen to Aaron Judge yesterday. Unfortunately, I don't have the pregame video of what he was talking to Meredith Morakovitz of the S Network about, but he said flat out that in the locker room they were having some mental issues as well in terms of getting that oomph back in the lineup and really feeling confident. And now with Rizzo coming in, with Gallo coming in, really the mindset has changed in that clubhouse. And now you're able to see it. And there's no doubt about it. You're able to see, as I brought up earlier, 18 of their last 26 games have all been winners. And something else too, guys, there is a big target on the Yankees' back. And you know what? And the reason why I say that is because it's not the fact that they're in third place in the AL East. Fact of the matter is that they're still chasing Boston. Boston did not really make a lot of deadline moves. The Yankees did. The Toronto Blue Jays did. The Tampa Bay Rays did. And really right now with the injuries, or the injury front, and as well as the COVID front, we now see Gleyber Torres go on the IL. We also got to see Luis Severino, who's going to be making a start, I believe, in Scranton or in Somerset on Friday, to see where his availability is at following a 2-year disaster with the former ace, if you will. Corey Kluber, who pitched a no-hitter early on in this season, he's scheduled to come back. So really, you've got a lot of deadline acquisitions, if you will, that really could be making a comeback for this Yankees team. And not only just, give them a little more oomph, but also once all of these guys come back, in addition to Gio Urshela, this lineup is really something that the rest of the AL East is not going to want to look at. And right now we get to see the Boston Red Sox. They have lost, I think, 4 of their last 5 or 5 of their last 6 or something along those lines. It's
lost
bad.
1 of their last 12.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad for them. And yes, maybe on Sunday they might get a little bit of Chris Sale action, but DeLuca, I want to stay with the New York Yankees here. And, and I brought up how maybe a target on their back, they're beginning to see it. And something else also that I don't know if any of you guys heard, I believe it was a tweet or something that was said in the clubhouse, but I believe it was Rougned Odor, who never played third base before at the major league level, and he was a little skittish about his role at third base. And obviously you have no choice but to play him there. And right now you had Anthony Rizzo, who said, "Don't worry, I will be able to catch any ball that is thrown my way." That's really a good leadership role that Anthony Rizzo is beginning to play on this team. What have you seen from this Yankees team and really in the last 26 games?
Just a reinvigorated squad is what we've seen. It seemed after the trade deadline, Anthony Rizzo, Joey Gallo, this team found a spark, and they're on a roll despite last night's loss. But they are playing a lot better baseball. They are hitting the ball more, and they're not always trying to go for the home run, as this team had a reputation of doing. They're trying to win these games by small ball now.
Well, they are the Bronx Bombers for a reason.
Well, sure, you get your reputation, but nonetheless, that's just not always going to work, even in a park like Yankee Stadium. Sometimes you just got to play the small ball. Teams are figuring it out. You know, tonight's lineup is an interesting one as the Yankees are just getting underway here against the
Kansas City Royals. They're actually in Kansas City. They've got, I believe, about 8:05 start since the Central Time Zone.
Oh, that's right. It's 8:00. But yeah, the lineup was shuffled a bit. DJ LeMahieu for the first time as a Yankee batting 5th tonight. So that'll be an interesting move to see. I mean, it's a move that a lot of fans were hoping would happen because DJ just hasn't been the DJ LeMahieu that we paid. But he, by no stretch of an average baseball player, he's still playing good baseball. It's just not up to DJ LeMahieu standards. Of course, there's the never-ending question about Brett Gardner and why he continues to lead off the lineup, because fans are like, it's good to see DJ out of the lineup or out of the leadoff spot for a break, but then to put in a struggling Brett Gardner, it just leaves a little bit of a head scratcher. And now Aaron Judge is batting 3rd. It's one of the more interesting lineups Aaron Boone has put this year. But you know, me personally, the way they've been playing, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And it seemed like it was finally getting back to, literally help, you know, like it seems like every time the Yankees are starting to figure it out, Aaron Boone finds the way to put us back into some pain because
for whatever Brian Morales, so Brian, I don't mean to interrupt you. Brian Morales says DJ to 5, cool with Gardner leading off. Help me.
Pain, nothing but pain. But no, nonetheless, DJ did need to be moved, not necessarily for Brett Gardner, but not much he could really do there. But overall, I'm liking the direction this team's finally taking. They're only 2.5 back of the Red Sox now, and they're only 6 back of the Tampa Bay Rays for first place. So what seemed like a runaway for Boston and Tampa, it was just going to be a 2-team race right to the end for the AL East, has now turned into a 4-team dogfight, and it is going to be a fun rest of the summer.
Well, this is something else too, guys, is that there's going to be a brand new shortstop who's going to be making his debut for the New York Yankees, Andrew Velazquez. He was drafted by the Arizona Diamondbacks back in 2012, round 7, pick number 243. He is actually a Bronx kid out of Fordham Prep. So he's essentially making his homecoming, if you will. He was with Scranton Wilkes-Barre for the majority of the season. So, you know, the cool thing there is that, you know, you've got a hometown kid that's going to be playing in Kansas City in his, in his favorite team's colors, of course, or in his favorite team's uniform, which is a cool thing. But the bottom line here is that now I'm starting to get a little worried about the depth part. Once Gio Urshela comes back, we might see a little bit more, but you know, and I'm not saying that Andrew Velazquez at age 27, who's also a switch hitter, you know, he can do damage. We don't really know much about him, but you start to look at that lineup, and exactly what Rob DeLuca said is that it kind of gets a little scary when you see certain things like that, guys.
And Joey, anything to get anything to see less of Tyler Wade at this point is where
I'll tell you this: Tyler Wade is actually playing third base, batting 8th tonight.
Yeah, he is. No, he even with I thought this call up meant Tyler Wade was going to be sitting out tonight, but no, they decided to give Odor the night off for no good reason, really. And
yesterday
he wasn't supposed to.
Go ahead, Mike.
I mean, yesterday's play where Tyler Wade let the foul ball bounce right in front of him late on just told you everything you needed to know
but
about
at this point.
Nobody used to care because he would be a bench player, pinch runner, and all. Now he gets exposed because he's playing a lot more often, and how awful he looks. I mean, the only thing he has going for him is at least he can play other, positions or whatnot around the infield, but he literally can't do much on offense. Velasquez, I will say, he's interesting to see what he has. He's been pretty good in AAA. I think he had last month, he had an 850 OPS down in AAA. He has the good base stealer. he has the most stolen bases in all of AAA this season. So
that is actually correct. Yeah, we're just reading that right now. Yeah. Yeah, that's, and you know what? And that's really something else. I mean, listen, maybe and I don't want to call Velazquez a random soul, but to New York Yankees fans, he really is. And we'll see what he can do tonight, starting tonight at around 8:05. That game can be seen on MLB.TV, Yes Network, wherever you may be catching baseball. Guys, let's keep on moving forward here. And I want to head over to Queens and look at the New York Mets, who have been a complete dumpster fire. And if Ian Schraier were here, he would probably agree. It's a legitimate disaster with the New York Mets. They were really bad against the Philadelphia Phillies, like really bad, guys. DeLuca, we're gonna start with you here. The Mets right now are in a legitimate free fall. This is something that we got to see in 2015. We got to see this in 2016. Yet they still made the wild card game against San Francisco. Yet they lost in, I'm sorry, not 15, 2014. 2016. Excuse me, 2016. They were on pace to actually do very well. 2015, obviously, they made the World Series. But 16, they made it against the San Francisco Giants. They were in line at the All-Star break to win the division, and then things went very south. Again, we're looking now. They're 2-8. They were swept, or 2-8 in their last 10. They were swept by the Philadelphia Phillies, who have won their last 8 of 10. I mean, this division was in their hands, and now it's gone. They went from first to third in a span of 3 days, DeLuca.
It looks like the injury bug really hit the Mets hard this time. Like, I mean, look, that Mets fans will use that excuse every year for them, but the problem is, it's the truth. They don't catch a break when it comes to the injury bugs, and it's always their most important players. They don't have Francisco Lindor. They don't have Jacob deGrom. They don't have Noah Syndergaard. They're losing everybody that matters. So what I am wondering is, what the Mets had to do was just try to exist and hold on. They didn't need to sweep anybody. They didn't even necessarily need to win every series. They just needed to not get consistently swept. And unfortunately, a sweep came, and it came at the hands of the worst possible opponent, a division opponent, and not just a division opponent that was chasing you all season long in the Philadelphia Phillies. And it has now allowed the Phillies to propel themselves, Joe Girardi, Didi Gregorius, Ronald Torreyes, and company, into first place in the NL East. And they are right now in a small, comfortable lead over the Atlanta Braves, who have found their moxie a little bit to try to get back into their way of playing and possibly get back to that division title that they were heavy favorites for at the beginning of the year. We will see where this goes from here, but it's an interesting stretch to say the least in Queens. Not a fun time to be a Mets fan.
Guys, it is a legitimate disaster. We got to see Edwin Diaz completely implode. Javier Baez is day-to-day now following I believe, an exit that he had. I believe it was yesterday or the day before. Jacob deGrom is on the IL. David Peterson is on the IL. Sean Reed-Foley has been on the IL for a long time. James McCann has not been performing up to par. Jeff McNeil, him and Pete Alonso are the two that are trying to keep this Mets up, keep them afloat. Things are really, really going downhill. Guys, Mike Szabo, I got to ask you this question. Obviously, the Mets are not our team, but this is an all-time high or an all-time low for a Mets fan. And I'll tell you why also. And I just want to give my opinion here is because we got to see Steve Cohen's tweet also where he said, yeah, I'm going to go give a little pep talk in the clubhouse here today. Yeah, these guys were fired up. Well, guess what? It resulted in a loss.
A shutout loss, no less.
I think Steve Cohen needs to stay off Twitter for at least a couple of weeks. He's had this whole time since he became owner in the offseason. It's sort of, he's had a lot of goodwill amongst the fans, freeing them from the Wilpons and whatnot. And, he's shared like almost this goodwill on Twitter, like, oh, there's a lot of positive vibes and whatnot. Now things are going down. And I think he's got to get off Twitter a little bit because a lot of he's not exactly in the good graces of fans right now, especially the inactivity at the deadline, because if they didn't get Baez, strange because their whole season they were treading water. They had injury problems, whether it was DeGrom, whether, you had to skip a start here or he had discomfort here, resulting, now into him having this long absence. They had at times through May and June, they had guys from their lineup that were out. At one point, they were practically playing a AAA team. And, the message was constantly to tread water, tread water, tread water. And they did that really well. And then finally, everybody was getting healthy. They get out of the All-Star break. The offense is finally coming alive. That was dead the entire season. And they had, up until the trade deadline, they had like the third most runs per game in the league. And then all of a sudden, it's just died out. Everybody sort of regressed back to what it was before the All-Star break, where they're 29th in the league in runs per game.
Yeah.
The pitching is getting worse now. You don't have DeGrom. Stroman and Walker haven't been as consistent as they were earlier in the year. Jared Eichhoff, do we even need to discuss that? Taylor McGill, he's a rookie. He's going to go through ups and downs. He just recently gave up 4 runs against the Marlins in a start. I think he had something similar the start before that. And he's a rookie. He's going to go through those progressions. And Rich Hill, what's Rich Hill going to really give you? He's 41 years old. He'll be a good back into the rotation guy, but, he's not going to be great, especially when, your other guys are struggling. Nobody was expecting for him to be an ace when they brought him in the deadline. And certainly that's nothing, close of what he is. And Carlos Carrasco, he's coming off of injury. So, the pitching is starting to falter and really fell apart this past weekend. And their lineup is really starting to get, regress back to what they were before the All-Star break and really not scoring, not doing anything. And I told my Met friends that before this series, all right, they're not doing great right now, but it's not time to truly panic until we see what happens this past weekend. And it's one thing if they would have won the series, probably you would have been like, we're not doing so good, but at least we got out of Philly there with the series win. They had the worst possible outcome that you could possibly get. And what happened yesterday? Zach Wheeler, I've been telling Mets fans for a couple of years that it was a huge mistake to let Zach Wheeler go. And boy, did
Oh my God, yeah. And not only that, too, Zabo, this is something else I want to bring up here, too. Do we remember, and I wish I could bring it up here, but for those fans that are out there that are watching us, Brodie Van Wagenen, a couple of years back, and Mike knows exactly what I'm going to say, when he said that Zach Wheeler was not worth the money that he wanted to come back.
Oops.
Big oops. and something that for the frequent Twitter follower or the frequent Twitter users out there. What's the tag? Tweets aged poorly, quotes aged poorly, if you will. What a disaster. The Mets clearly are not only a disaster, but they're still living in the Wilpon era. Why do I say that? Because if you think about it, who is their general manager and president of baseball operations? Sandy Alderson. And I think now, guys, what we were able to see here, right, is that Sandy Alderson was still a little cheap on a few moves. Yes, he was able to do whatever. Yes, he was able to do this and get Javier Baez. Now, we made that point back with Tyler Adele last week, and we were talking about how there are things here that the Mets were unable to do. And yes, where Tyler and Casey were trying to make the argument about Chris Bryant. Now, I agreed with Casey where there was no place to plug Chris Bryant because in left field, you've got Dom Smith. At third base, you've got J.D. Davis. But looking at some of these numbers here, anybody is better than some of those guys. Pete Alonso, in his last 53 at-bats, he's got 7 hits. And how many home runs? 2. Maybe for those that are out there that were so stoked that he won his second home run derby, maybe it's possible that after a home run derby victory, there could possibly be some fatigue in the long ball.
We've seen it every year.
We've seen it happen.
Aaron Judge, Pete Alonso the first time. Aaron Judge, Pete Alonso the first time.
It's not good, and DeLuca's Wi-Fi is cutting in and out again.
Prime example.
Yeah. Go ahead, DeLuca. You're back with us.
Of course he is. What else? Yeah, of course I'm in and out again. What else? But no, like, well, no, but we saw it with Aaron Judge. We saw it with Pete Alonso the first time. We even, I mean, not as prominent, but we saw it with Giancarlo Stanton a little bit. He wasn't on the same tear that he was originally. So when he was in his Miami days, that is. But nonetheless, it does take a toll on these guys to swing your arms out trying to hit a home run every single at bat. It's not good. That's the bottom line here. It's not good. And the problem here too for Mets fans is that they did not address the rotation. They did not address the bullpen. They were only able to address Javier Baez as well as Trevor Williams. That's not enough. You need to stack up this roster. This roster is not that good. Yes, it looks good on paper, but it's very evident when you have Pete Alonso struggling, you need more than that. You need more. And Dom Smith, we have to realize just a few years ago, there were pitchforks out for Dom Smith. Remember when he started at first base after Lucas Duda? Do we remember that, Mike? We remember that, Rob? Remember that when Dom Smith was supposed to be the first baseman of the Mets' future? Yeah, that didn't really. He was supposed to be the next great Keith Hernandez. Well, guess what, folks? That didn't happen. So they make a position change. He's now in left field. Great job. That's awesome. And they've now found Pete Alonso. That's great. But unfortunately, he's nowhere to be found. The pitching is a disaster. You make a trade for Rich Hill, which is basically cash considerations or low ball minor league guys. You have Cookie Carrasco, who right now you're expecting to be your number 2 until DeGrom comes back. And then you've got Marcus Stroman, who is now technically your ace right now. It's not good in Queens right now. DeLuca, final thought. Okay, well, as we can see, DeLuca again is having some Wi-Fi problems. So we're gonna throw it to Mike Szabo for final thought. You tried.
Szabo, go ahead with your.
Let me just make this final thing that just as you were saying, Joey, about the trade deadline. I don't think enough people. I think I remember seeing this on Twitter too. And I completely agree. I don't think Mets fans understand how much damage the previous ownership administration did to this team. I don't think they realize it, especially what Brodie Van Wagenen did to this team. And you saw it at this trade deadline. They should have gone after more help for the rotation. I mentioned on my podcast that I started back up last week that they should have went after John Gray of the Rockies. They should have rated the Rockies for either one of German Marquez or John Gray, probably John Gray. Or they should have gone harder after Jose Berrios, and they needed some help for the rotation. And like I said before, if it wasn't for Javier Baez, it would have been a very poor trade deadline. And why? Because Brodie Van Wagenen absolutely destroyed the minor league depth of the Mets' farm system. Last season, in the shortened pandemic season, they traded for Robinson Chirinos and Todd Frazier at the trade deadline. In those trades, I think it was in the Chirinos trade, they traded their 2019 minor league pitcher of the year. What do the Mets need right now? Pitching. And they absolutely destroyed the minor league depth that they had. And that hurt them in this deadline, and that they couldn't go after some of the names that I just mentioned because they didn't have good offers. I mean, teams didn't like what they had.
It's a disaster. It's a legitimate disaster with the Mets right now. And again, and we're not trying to trash the Mets fans here. We're not trying to trash the Mets. Basically, we're seeing a legitimate implosion here. And right now, against the Atlanta Braves, who are finally beginning to find their stride, as well as the Philadelphia Phillies, where in actually our prompt, I wrote this down here, where Bryce Harper could, I don't want to call it unlikely, but Jimmy Rollins, the former Phil, and I see DeLuca shaking his head.
Don't do it. Don't say it.
I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. Where Jimmy Rollins came out publicly on MLB Network just a few days ago and said that there is quite a possibility that you could see an unlikely case for MVP or an unlikely candidate for MVP in Bryce Harper.
Agree.
Yeah, it is. It is unlikely. Let me tell you that. Let me tell you that right now.
I'll tell you this though.
Where was? Because can you really make someone an MVP off of half a season? Because where were they the other half?
That's
it's
definitely
because it's a hot second half. What if you had if someone had a smoking hot first half and then died in the second half, they wouldn't get the MVP because of how poor they played in the second half of the season, because they're forgotten about at that point. So why should that not apply to the same situation where you're dead in the first half, but you're on the hottest streak ever in the second half, and that puts you in contention because it's recent? That's the issue I take with it. Is that
Zabo, your response?
Recent.
I could agree with Rob, but I think the fact is that the NL MVP race is wide open. I think Bryce Harper's played himself into that conversation. I mean, his numbers are insane right now. Nobody's realizing it. He's hitting over 300 right now. The main reason of why the Phillies have jumped up into first place has to do with him and his recent offensive hot streak. And nobody's really talked about it because of how bad the NL East has been, how bad the Phillies have been at times this season, of how good of a season Bryce Harper is having. People forget about Bryce Harper because he signed this 13-year contract. Oh, we just stashed him away in Philadelphia for the rest of his career. Everybody's forgot how good of a baseball player he can be. And I think the fact is the MVP race is wide open with the fact that DeGrom had it locked up the way he was pitching, and now he's practically injured, from June all the way up until, mid-September, so he can't be the MVP. Tatis has been having injury problems, so you would think it would be Tatis that would be the next guy that would be, be in line for the MVP award, but he's had injury problems now. And so, who else is there that has, good enough numbers to be an MVP?
Yeah, and you know what? I want to go back to some of the numbers here with the Philadelphia Phillies in their last 15 days, in their last 15 games. Bryce Harper, you brought up, Mike, how they are, or rather he is, batting over 300, precisely 395 right now. 17 of 43, 5 home runs, 10 RBIs, has only struck out 5 times, walked 13, and 7 of those hits were doubles. Really amazing stuff. Odubel Herrera, Alec Baum, Jean Segura, as well as JT Realmuto. Those 5 players are leading this charge for the Philadelphia Phillies, and they are not going away either. As we brought up earlier about Brodie Van Wagenen's stupidity back a couple of years ago, again, we are looking back and seeing what Zach Wheeler has done. Zach Wheeler, he has started his last 3 games. 2 of those have been complete games. 23 1/3 innings of work, has only allowed 7 earned runs, 2 homers, and 4 walks, 21 strikeouts, and an opposing batting average of .202. I really have to credit Brodie Van Wagenen for this. Think about it. Mentally, to some players that are out there, right? When you hear a comment like that, that really gives you the bump and the boost to really do well. And especially when you have a World Series champion manager in Joe Girardi to now go ring chasing, you're trying to build off of what you started in the first half of the season. In my opinion, if it's not for German Marquez, Zach Wheeler, and I'll tell you why. We'll get to German Marquez in a moment, and I think he's an underrated guy. Zach Wheeler has the NL Cy Young locked up.
Could be,
yeah,
Joey.
I think so.
I mean, it really could. Yeah, it's really hard to dispute that right now.
It's definitely fair. And again, obviously, you have to look out in Los Angeles, but those guys are, again, a little injury prone. Let's go to German Marquez in just a moment. But before we get to that, Brian Morales says transactions. New York Mets have announced that GM/owners have been placed on the 10-day IL for tweets that don't age well and poor deadline moves and motivational tweets per New York Mets Twitter. That is our good friend, Director of Media Relations, from Wagner College, Brian Morales. That's pretty good. I got to tell you that.
That's phenomenal stuff right there from our fans.
I mean, but you know what though? The sad part is that that's the truth. That's the sad part. Guys, let's keep on moving forward here and taking a peek at what German Marquez. I don't want to spend too much time on this since we've got another 45 minutes until our good friend Evan Winter comes in and chats about the NFC South with us, as most specifically the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But German Marquez, the last time, guys, that we got to see an ace in Colorado was really never. Aside from Ubaldo Jimenez, who else can we really think of that has been an ace out there ever since the Todd Helton era, ever since the era of Troy Tulowitzki, Nolan Arenado, especially in Nolan Arenado's tenure in Colorado? There has not been an ace there. The pitching has been a disaster. But then again, how can you get pitching when pitchers are historically bad in that ballpark because you're in the Mile High City?
I think a couple of years ago they had, was it 2018 or 2019? Kyle Freeland had like a crazy year. He had really good numbers and then fell off afterward. But yeah, it's been bad pitching there. I think Marquez, he's a decent pitcher. I think ace is a term I'd use lightly. I think with the numbers of what the Colorado pitching staff is, I guess he's the ace. But he's kind of an up and down pitcher. I think his ERA is at like a 3.4, so that's kind of the pitcher he's always been in his career. I don't know if he's typically an 8. If you put him on another team, another contending team, he's probably a high upside 3 or a 2. So I think he's just the ace of the Rockies just because of how bad they are.
Yeah, I gotta go with Mike here. It's a tough play, but it's tough to play in Colorado right now when they're struggling the way they are. But I do agree, Joey, that German Marquez is flying under the radar a little bit. But what can you do when we're out here in the New York area and we're really only going to hear about New York related things? So of course here on the East Coast he's going to fly under the radar because he's all the way out in the Mile High City, trying to take care of business. But nonetheless, overall, I'd have to go with Mike overall. I'd say you if you do put him on a different team, he's not even close to an ace. It's more he more fits in as a depth rotation guy, but he's still a very useful player. He's a very useful player, but if you put him somewhere other than Colorado, probably not an ace.
See, I want to just say here, guys, looking at his record, 10-8, 3.42 ERA in 23 games started. I don't want to call him an ace right now, but what I do want to say is that he might just be their best pitcher since Ubaldo Jimenez, which again is not saying much because then we got to see Ubaldo Jimenez's career literally tumble in front of our very eyes. We asked the question earlier to all the fans out there and all the folks that are watching about who the last ace on the Colorado Rockies was that really people can think of. And our good friend Brian Morales brought up Mike Hampton. Now, if I'm not mistaken, B, correct me if I'm wrong here. And again, looking at some of the statistics with Mike Hampton, I remember that, and I remember that he was on a plethora of teams. That I remember. And I remember he eventually was, I believe, a 2-time All-Star. That's without looking at some of the stats here. But now I'm going to really, start cheating here and take a peek at it. And looking and seeing what he did in 2001 in his first full season with Colorado, he went 14-13 with a 5.41 ERA. He had a whole bunch of control problems. And this is kind of the part where a lot of people understand that Colorado is a legitimate disaster in terms of pitching, because you have to look at, they give this money. Colorado, that is. They give this money to a lot of these power guys in terms of the bats, such as Nolan Arenado, and they perform mightily. But the problem is that because it is a legitimate hitter's ballpark, we got to see it in the All-Star game, and we got to see Juan Soto hit a 520-foot home run. Why? Because the ball literally carries. There's no movement because you're so high up in I think a mile high. So that's 3,700 feet up in the sky, kind of. Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody. But again, you look at what Mike Hampton did. Yeah, he was an all-star a few times, but after pitching in Colorado, it went downhill for him. And I can't think of another starter aside from Hampton now and Ubaldo Jimenez. Guys, let us know, please. Let us know on YouTube, on comment here, please. And, let us know if there's any other pitchers that we could think of aside from those guys. Because obviously we know in 2007 when they made the World Series against the Red Sox, it was Ubaldo Jimenez who was leading the charge. That was pretty much it. I can't really think of much anymore. Guys, let's keep on moving forward here, and let's get out of Major League Baseball and move over to the ice. We were talking about earlier about Lake Placid, right? We were talking about that, but let's keep it here, rather in the New York area. And I want to start with New Jersey Devils legend Tomas Tatar, as DeLuca texted me and said, we need some Tatar sauce, if you will, for those fish sticks. That was probably one of the corniest jokes I've ever heard from him.
And you loved it anyway.
That is definitely fair. And he signed to a two-year deal worth $9 million, 4.5 AAV. DeLuca, what does this do for your team?
I have been asking for Tomas Tatar on this team since he was in Detroit. This is a player I have always been very fond of, and I think he's just a very solid depth player. He's going to go well. He's going to fit right there in that middle six for the New Jersey Devils, probably on that second line with either Jack Hughes or Nico Hischier at center. So I think this is a great move for the team, help them very much offensively. It's going to really set themselves up to finally take that next step forward. And I think that it really helps now that, now all the restricted free agents have been signed. Yanni Kokkonen was the last one, just signed his contract earlier today as well for 2 years at 1.825 AAV. That's a great signing for a young and up-and-coming kid. He's going to be great. And honestly, right now, the light is beginning to shine a little bit brighter in Newark, New Jersey. And I'm not going to put any reservations on playoffs yet, but I will say this: the tanking, the quote-unquote tanking and intentionally losing or bottom 5 finishes are over. They are no more in New Jersey.
Now, let me ask you this question. Now, the whole thing that I need to know here is that, yes, their cap hit right now is about $68 million. They're $8 million over the cap floor. Do you think that they were just signing these guys to not only build the development, but are they chasing? Can you say with a straight face here, DeLuca, that they are chasing the playoffs?
I mean, what team isn't trying to chase the playoffs every year is the real question. This is a 32-team league now, and everybody wants to be a part of that 16 that makes the playoffs. And this is a team that is trying to be done with a 10-year rebuild, essentially. And it seems like it's finally coming to a close. They've drafted properly. They're signing the right free agents. With $12 million or so left in cap space, I would expect one more move to be made by Tom Fitzgerald this offseason, primarily at third line center, which it's
okay. So as we are waiting for DeLuca's stream to buffer, I want to go back to Zabo here, and you're a Rangers fan. We're not going to talk about Igor Shesterkin just yet. I want to stick to Tomas Tatar, even though the news happened with him last week. What do you think this does here for the Devils? I mean, again, me looking at it personally, I'm going to say that this is more of a development plan here for Tom Fitzgerald and really trying to get
older players as Tomas Tatar at the age of 30.
And we're going to go back to Zabo here as DeLuca's stream, that entire thing cut out.
Because I did something strategic with the Wi-Fi, and I'm praying it'll pay off, because that was a long buffer there. So I did something, and I'm praying it worked. So we'll just have to see.
Okay. Well, for those folks that are watching us or decide to tune out, we will see if it worked or not. Because if you tune out, clearly it did not work. But Zabo,
no, it was clearly the dumbest idea I ever had. I'm just never gonna try that again. That was the dumbest idea I could have ever made. But nonetheless, so yeah, if I could finish my point,
please finish.
Where was I when I cut out? Where was I when I cut up?
I don't even know. Restart from the beginning.
Yeah, no. So Yeah, it was the age restriction. So Fitzgerald kind of wants to keep this team younger because he feels that'll be better for the long-term success. Tomas Tatar is the oldest player on this team, or the oldest forward on this team now at the age of 30, PK Subban being the oldest player at age 32, I believe. So he doesn't like a lot of old guys. But with who's left available for like a depth center, like I would think someone perfect who's going to be nice and cheap as well, because I don't want this team to spend the entire cap in one offseason. So I think someone like Tyler Bozak, or even Tyler Bozak or a Derek Brassard, even, they're in their mid-30s. So you can sign them to 2-year deals real cheap, but it'll help the depth and the veteran leadership that this team will need and that's what the second year is for, because I firmly believe next season is the New Jersey Devils time to strike for the playoffs. So that's why I think a 2-year deal would be important for one of those depth centers. So that's where I would put it. But overall, Tomas Tatar, great signing. Very, very happy. Loving the direction my New Jersey Devils are trending in.
Zabo, quick response.
I think it gives them, good veteran experience. Tatar's been, experienced veteran. He's played in a lot of big games and will really help the development. He still can play, no doubt, but he's been in a lot of big games, so it really helped the development of some of the younger guys. I think it's a solid move by the Devils.
So let's keep moving forward here, and I want to head over the Hudson River and go to the New York Rangers. And for Mike Zabo, he's extremely happy because Igor Shesterkin, he signed a contract extension. He was an RFA and signed a 4-year deal worth $5.66 million average annual value, which, by the way, is the second largest contract for a goalie in NHL history. Second largest contract in NHL history. So is it I think it's it's the largest.
Second contract.
Largest second contract ever given out to a goaltender in NHL history.
Yeah.
Mike Zabo, I want to know your thoughts about Shesterkin. Is this a high price tag? And will this team now possibly be in cap hell in the next few years?
Yes, potentially. I've heard a lot of disdain for this move in terms of the money being given, because Shesterkin has a lot of potential, and I think he can be one of a top 10, top 5 goalie in this league. That's his ceiling. But a lot of people don't like this move at the moment because he's only played 47 games, and especially too in a shortened, he's had to deal with the shortened pandemic season as well. So there are a lot of factors with that. People think he got a little bit much. I think the Rangers are going to be in a bit of cap hell. I think the Trouba move certainly hurts their cap, and how much money he's making. They have to make some decisions with the forward line and Zibanejad and whatnot. So they could be in that situation they were in a couple of years ago when they were starting to tear it down and on this path that they've been on the last couple of years. But this needed to get done, plain and simple. But I think it could lead to bigger ramifications later. But the big thing is they got their goalie of the future. There's some concerns, but I think ultimately he's going to live up to that potential. Like I said, they have to get the deal done. I think they're just going to have to move certain other pieces around to try and bring their cap down and maneuver the cap or whatnot. But certainly they couldn't play around with this deal.
And there's no doubt about, and you know what, this is, and I've been called out on this plenty of times. And I remember on our inaugural show, on our first ever show, when we had in our studio down here, we had Tyler Adele, we had Nick Partain here, and I'll never forget. I remember saying, and I wish I could pull up the video. If we had only a crew of producers, but one of these days, when Artemi Panarin signed that massive deal and spurned the New York Islanders, turned down nearly $13 million and took a much lesser deal to play in Manhattan, and is now making $11.642857, and he made that for 7 years. Again, you look at that deal, and obviously you get to see one of the best players in the National Hockey League in Manhattan, right? But the fact of the matter is that, yes, that $11 million could be a big shining light. Exactly what Zabo said about the $8 million eyesore with Jacob Trouba right now, not looking great. But this is the part where we might also see Adam Fox, too. He's going to get his payday as well. And now we are beginning to see what the defensive market is going to look like. We're seeing what Darnell Nurse made, $9.5 million. And Adam Fox just won the Norris. Maybe that could propel him up to $10 million. Could we see something like how we see in San Jose with a plethora of these I think it's like what between Brent Burns, Erik Karlsson, and Marc-Edouard Vlasic, I think it's like $25 million on the blue line. Look where they are now. I don't think that's going to be like that with the Rangers, but we are beginning to see something where things could be. You might have to play some chess here and really move some pieces around. DeLuca, I want to go to you with Shesterkin. You're not really you're a Devils fan, obviously, so you're not really too happy about this move. But is this even a good move for the Rangers?
It is. Let's not dilly-dally here. The Rangers know that this is their future right here, and that they're locking them down is what they did. And I won't be surprised in 3 years he gets an extension. That way he doesn't even see the market again, even though I believe he'll still be restricted. But nonetheless, I believe that I thought the money was fair, honestly. The Rangers know what Igor Shesterkin can be, and that's what they're paying him to be. So they're just doing it now. Now, this could lead to a bigger payday down the road if he does live up to it, but you know what? That's what happens. That's what you have to. That's just something you got to live with. You're hoping you have to almost pay. You're almost hoping you have to pay this guy more because that means he's playing well. It means he's earned such money. And while I can't attest to the fact that he's earned $5.65 million AAV over 4 years, I expect he will get there, and I expect him to get there quickly. So I think that this is a fine move for the Rangers. As terms of their cap situation, yeah, they're in big trouble. There's not even a question about that, because Adam Fox is owed a lot of money. Mika Zibanejad will be owed a lot of money. If he's still a New York Ranger, that's up in the air.
Which is wild.
It's
no
wild.
one ever thought that.
Ryan Strome likely going to have to be the odd man out with his contract coming off the books. I almost personally, this is no insider information, this is just a guess, that he'll get moved to relieve some cap. Alexander Georgiev, backup goaltender, wants a starter job, requested to trade out. I expect that'll happen at some point. So the Rangers are still a little strapped, but it won't be as bad as it's being made out to be. But for now, there's a little cap issue, but everything will solve itself out until Jack Eichel shows up here in Manhattan. I'm not even concerned at this point, because if he wasn't going to the New York Rangers, he'd already be out of Buffalo by now. So that makes me think that the suitors out west are no longer interested. And again, all this is purely my own speculation. I think it's almost not a done deal, but it's almost a certainty. We will see Jack Eichel in Rangers colors sometime soon. And it's just that'll make for an interesting cap situation because of how much money he makes. So it's a lot of question marks right now.
Guys, we continuously talk about the cap here on this show, and I want to move over and down the turnpike and go to the most hated team that DeLuca hates, in the Philadelphia Flyers, and I think we got to see what Carter Hart, his extension, was all about. He signed a 3-year deal on a restricted free agent deal. He is making now $3.979 million AAV for the next 3 years. He had a really bad year last year, but is this a deal, guys, for head coach Alain Vigneault that possibly could be, and not only that, but also general manager Chuck Fletcher, that they could possibly, look back on and say, we really wish that this contract was never signed or done?
Probably. I think this is this was a real head scratcher. I mean, Carter Hart was one of, if not the worst goaltender in the NHL last year. He was one of the worst seasons I've ever seen. And for a guy who, I mean, look, he's a young kid. He's only 24 years old. But for someone of that age, and to have all this hype around you and to play like that, you should consider yourself fortunate you got that kind of money. granted, it's only a 3-year deal, but the fact that he almost got $4 million a year off of it is crazy to me. I cannot believe the Flyers were willing to pay him this money. Look, I get it. He's your goalie of the future. But you did not have to overpay this man yet. It was not that time. He was not like Igor Shesterkin. He's not what Mackenzie Blackwood will likely get from New Jersey in 2 years' time. But to give this to him now, I mean, I get you had to sign him, but you did not have to overpay him. It's a real confusing contract to me. I'm surprised, but I expected him to get paid. But I really thought the Flyers were not going to jump right to it and be like, look, we're going to have faith in you. We know you struggled last year, but we're still going to pay you anyway. That's where I get confused, especially when you're in hockey, this hard salary cap, and it just a head scratcher, really.
But see, that's the thing, though, is that I think that this is decent, and I'll tell you why, because of a revamped blue line, and not only that, too, but also you've got a man in Martin Jones, again, who is really trying to revive his career as well, and that is to say the least. And you want to talk about how Carter Hart has had a bad year? You have to look at Martin Jones out west.
Oh, Joey, if Carter Hart doesn't bounce back, that could be looked on as the worst tandem in the NHL.
Well, that could be, yes. But the whole thing, though, is that we're talking about 2020 stats. And really right now what I want to look at is that how Martin Jones did make it to the Stanley Cup final back in 2015-16. We also have to realize that he also has led the San Jose Sharks with a really bad forward group and a lackadaisical blue line at the time. Against the that was actually when the San Jose Sharks made the Western Conference final run against the St. Louis Blues. That was the year the Blues won the Stanley Cup. They were trying to go. I think it was their second trip in 3 years. That was the year that they traded for Erik Karlsson, and Martin Jones played a big hand in that. Think about the experience that Martin Jones brings here, and if he can find his groove, you might be able to put Carter Hart on the stove that could possibly really light up the fire that could really be steaming under his chair. Because if you need somebody to really get this man warmed up and really allow him that potential or get him to play to his potential, I think Martin Jones is the perfect man if he can play up to what he was back in San Jose in the beginning of his tenure there. Mike Szabo, let's move over to you. What do you think about this Carter Hart signing?
Well, DeLuca said a key word, faith, and I think that's what Philadelphia has put in Carter Hart. He put up some great numbers the year before, as you guys mentioned.
Absolutely.
He was one of the worst goalies ever last year, but the year before that, he put up some historically great numbers. So this contract is all about if Carter Hart can return to those numbers that you saw two years ago. So Philly is saying, we're going to put faith in this guy, and because he did so bad last year, we get to buy low rather than having to pay him the money that the Rangers are paying Igor Shesterkin and whatnot, and we can potentially get a goalie who can rise to the sort of potential that the Rangers want Igor Shesterkin to, with a much cheaper contract. So it's a very high risk, but a very high reward.
Absolutely. I'm with Mike 100% here. And and if it doesn't work out, it's just another domino in the clear jinx that the Philadelphia Flyers have on trying to find a goaltender. Because I've never seen a team go through goaltenders like them in the past decade. It is unbelievable.
I mean, the last goalie that I could think of aside from Bernie Parent, I can't even think of one. Say it again.
Sergei Bobrovsky.
Sergei Bobrovsky, and they traded him. Yeah,
they went with Brizgalov over him.
Yeah,
and that is where the curse started. They had someone in Sergei Bobrovsky, went to Ilya, thought they had something better in Ilya Brizgalov, burned him, and here we are ever since.
Yeah, completely burned him, and they're still paying him on this massive buyout deal, which
that's still fun. That's still fun.
It's still a disaster. They're actually paying him $1.642857 all the way until 26-27. That's just a quick little stat there.
Oh.
Ilya Bryzgalov. It's similar to like Mets fans with Bobby Bonilla Day. It's a lot of these.
It's like Ilya Bryzgalov Day,
right? We got Bryzgalov. You got Rick DiPietro for the Islanders.
Oh, that's
you got a whole bunch of good stuff there.
I like how you named Rick DiPietro, Joey. I feel like that's a good segue to the next guy.
That is definitely true. But because of time restrictions, we're gonna stay on Adam Pelech for a quick moment. We will not be covering Darnell Nurse's massive contract. We want to get to that. But
Joey, I got it real brief. It's bad. All right. All right, on to Pelech.
Adam Pelech signed a massive 8-year deal worth $5.75 million AAV with the Islanders this past Friday. Now, that was the first signing that Lou Lamoriello has kind of opened the door to allow the media in for about a quick 5 seconds. And I want to go to Rob DeLuca here first because he knows all about his former general manager and president of hockey operations in Lou Lamoriello. And this is, DeLuca, a Lou Lamoriello move that you have seen from a mile away. And DeLuca was unable to fix that Wi-Fi, I see. So I want to move over to Mike Szabo just because we are running low on time. What do you think about this deal? $5.75 million, especially after seeing Darnell Nurse.
I'm just going to keep talking to the microphone until it comes back. Hey, it came back. How about that?
Hey, you're back. Right. You're back.
Yeah, Joe. Yeah. So let's see if I can actually get through one session without a cutout. Look, this is classic Lou Lamoriello. This is how he operates. It's his way, or there's the door right there. Like you either get on board with what Lou's doing, or you leave. And honestly, it's the way he runs things. And guess what? He's got 3 Stanley Cups to show for it. So clearly, it works. So, I mean, look, I would love to see all the signings that we all know are coming for the New York Islanders to just be released already. But this, I am in shock that it did not even cost the New York Islanders $6 million, let alone almost $7 million to keep Adam Pelech around. Adam Pelech is one of the most underrated defensemen in the National Hockey League, and I have zero issue saying that, alongside his very similarly underrated defense partner, Ryan Pulock. This is one of the most underrated defensive pairs in all of hockey, because you got Pulock, who is more of the offensive guy of the two, but he's also very good defensively. And then there's Pelech, who is 100% defense and pass first, and it really revitalizes that blue line with whichever forward core is out there with them on the ice. Those two make those 3 forwards better every single shift, and I cannot believe it cost Lou Lamoriello and the New York Islanders so little to keep Pelech around. To me, that says Adam Pelech sees something here in the New York Islanders' future, and he wants to be a part of it. And I think it's a wonderful thing.
You also brought up about Darnell Nurse's contract being bad. How about Miro Heiskanen? How about Seth Jones, Zach Werenski? The contracts, you can.
Heiskanen's was good. The rest you named were bad. Heiskanen's, in my opinion, was decent.
Well, and I think the reason why too with the other signings as well has to do with their offensive ability. Adam Pelech is defense first, and that's the part where Lou Lamoriello was able to really get him down to that price. Listen, he did file
he's
for
still
arbitration.
worth more. He's still worth far more money than he's now getting, but that's the way Lou does
but
it.
His offensive numbers too. His offensive numbers are not there. That's why he was not making $9.5 million.
Well, sure, no, but I expected him to be at least close to 7 because he's that good at defense. He's that good of a player. But that's what Lou Lamoriello does. He'll revitalize you. He'll make you really believe that success is coming to this team. And that's how he gets them to sign long-term and for not as much money as you'd think they'd make on a shorter contract. That's what Lou Lamoriello likes to do. He likes to do term as opposed to more. He likes to do more term as opposed to more money. He really believes in the players that he brings in. He's not a big fan of a lot of change. That's why when it was time to rebuild in New Jersey, he was trying to add all these ancient players, trying to keep the glory days alive, and it just wasn't working. He wants long-term success, and he believes in the players he brings in. And that is why he is perfect for the New York Islanders right now, because they do, while the window is shrinking, it's still there. It's not closed yet. There's still a good shot for the New York Islanders to really dig deep. And with the Tampa,
and we expect him to say the Tampa Bay Lightning. Again, because we are running short on time here, I want to go to Mike Szabo. Keep talking if DeLuca comes back.
Yeah, so I think what Rob's point, I think it's all about building a culture. I think it's all about a culture that Lou Lamoriello is building. And you see it a lot of times with teams that are going into deep playoff runs or Stanley Cup teams or whatnot. You have guys that are willing to take less in order to keep the project going, to keep certain guys together. And this is this move is a perfect example of that, of a guy taking less money to be able to keep everybody together, and because you see the potential this team has going down the road and the culture that is being built here. So I think that's the reason why they were able to get him at such a cheap price.
Yeah, between that, and I will say, obvious coach of the year that gets snubbed every year, Barry Trotz, is no doubt.
Well, he did win 2 years ago.
Yeah, well, sure, but he really is the best coach in this league. He is I personally don't look, I think the Islanders are a good team. They would not be back-to-back Eastern Conference final appearances without him, though, if you ask me. Not a chance. There's no other system that would work like Barry Trotz's for this Islanders team. It's a really interesting Islanders team because it's been built by Lou, almost more of Lou Lamoriello than Garth Snow now, as opposed to it was two years ago when the playoff success started. So it's now a couple more Lou players than Garth Snow players, and Joey is I don't know where he wants to go with this, but I think he knows I'm right deep down. Is that
no, I don't, and this is the last point. This is the last point that I want to make, just because we don't have much time here. I want to name all the Garth Snow players, and then I want to name the guys that Lou Lamoriello brought in. The guys that Garth Snow had on his roster when he was general manager: Anders Lee, Matthew Barzal, Brock Nelson, Josh Bailey, Cal Clutterbuck, Matt Martin, Ross Johnston, Anthony Beauvillier, moving down to the defensive pair. Johnny Boychuk does not count because of his long-term injury.
He really put in Ross Johnston and left out Casey Zizekas, thinking Ross Johnston actually matters.
Casey Zizekas is not 100% on this roster just yet, so calm down over there, big fella. Adam Pelech, Ryan Pulak, Scott Mayfield, Sebastian Aho, I'm going to include him in there as well. Thomas Hickey, Ilya Sorokin. Okay, now we've got the guys now that came in off the likes of Lou Lamoriello. Jean-Gabriel Pageau, Leo Komarov. I guess we can kind of put Matt Martin in there because he was reacquired by Lou, but I'm going to keep that one out of there. Richard Panik, Oliver Wahlstrom, Noah Dobson, Andy Green, Semyon Varlamov. It's still I'd say about 70-30 Garth Snow's roster.
Well, sure, but you're going to add Kyle Palmieri, you're going to add Travis Zajac. These are signings that just haven't been announced yet that we know are coming.
Definitely fair, but
Lou
group is Garth Snow's guys.
No, 100%. But Lou's footprint is now definitely in there. Is my point. It's in there, and it's prominent because let's not forget Lou Lamoriello also got Barry Trotz. Garth Snow did not get Barry Trotz, and that was honestly the biggest thing. I firmly believe the Islanders would not be as good as they are without him, just because of the system Barry Trotz runs and the roster that has now been made to the New York Islanders. I do not see another coach that would duplicate the performances that the team has had in 2019 and 2020, where it would be the same without Barry Trotz.
Definitely something that we will be looking forward to in the coming weeks when hockey begins to ramp up starting in the next, I think, few weeks. Training camps are going to be, reopening. And the reason why I say reopening at the end of August, the beginning of September, we're going to start seeing some preseason games. Things are going to start coming back to normal. This was the season that things were going to be, or the way that the NHL really looked at getting things back to normal post-pandemic. So a really good sign to see things moving forward and starting right around October 13th yet again. It's really great to see post-pandemic life is beginning to
it's a beautiful thing.
Pre-pandemic life. Guys, I want to get to a couple of sports updates here. I want to leave Lionel Messi till after because that one is a good one that we're going to be discussing about. Winnipeg Jets center Pierre-Luc Dubois changes his number from 13 to 80 in honor of his former teammate Metis Kivlenieks, who died tragically in a fireworks accident back on July 4th. Of course, for all of the NFL fans, director or vice president of officiating, Al Riveron, he will be retiring, and I am sure a lot of the NFL fans are extremely happy to get him out. Also, the Vancouver Canucks have re-signed defenseman Olli Juolevi to a 1-year deal worth $750,000. That's definitely some good stuff there. DeLuca, thank you very much for doing God's work here in erasing things as I'm talking. This is awesome. John Tortorella joins ESPN as an NHL studio analyst. Good Lord,
epic.
help!
That's epic. There's nothing that beats that one, Joey. I don't know if you can name a better sports update than that.
I listen. All I know is that could it be? It's going to be Barry Melrose and John Tortorella for looking.
That's awesome.
Just fantastic on this ESPN broadcast.
It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. It's a great time.
Speaking of broadcasters, RG3 joins ESPN as a broadcaster, but he is open to an NFL return. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, a really sad, tragic news for the Florida State Seminoles. Former head coach and longtime Hall of Fame head coach Bobby Bowden, he died at the age of 91. And he died natural causes. He was in hospice for a little bit, but Bobby Bowden died at the age of 91, second all time in Division I wins in college football, guys. Really a sad moment for the Seminoles, a really sad moment in college football history, and also a really sad time in our world as well. 91 years old, Bobby Bowden lived a very, very long life. He will definitely be missed for sure. Guys, I want to start off in the NBA. We don't really cover that much here on this show because of so many other topics, but here on tonight's show, we have to really announce a few things and really discuss it rather quickly. But Luka Doncic, he signed a maximum rookie supermax deal, 5 years, $207 million. That is something phenomenal. We got to see him play in the Olympics with Slovenia. Unfortunately, they were unable to get the bronze medal. Things were not looking too great for them, down the stretch in the Olympics. But for Luka Doncic, Mark Cuban really giving out these massive contracts. We know in the NBA, it's always supermax this, supermax that. Mike Szabo, the reason actually why I saw this deal come about is because of your quote tweet that said, show me the money. And that's exactly what Luka Doncic told Mark Cuban, who's also a shark on Shark Tank. But, listen, he asked Mark Cuban, show me the money, and Mark Cuban paid up. There's no doubt about it. What do you think of this deal?
Well, it's a great deal. Dallas had to do this. There was concern earlier in the offseason of Doncic potentially not wanting to re-sign, and that threw up major red flags in Dallas because for whatever reason, they have such a tough time being able to attract great free agents to join up with their stars, whether it was Dirk Nowitzki back in the day or it's now, and trying to build around Luka Doncic. And if Doncic was going to be talking about wanting out, then there really would have been bad times ahead in Dallas. But they really needed to get this done. It's a lot of money, but definitely needed to get it done for a guy who's going to be a top 5 player in the league for probably the next decade.
And you also have a brand new coaching staff coming in. Rick Carlisle was the one who led this Dallas Mavericks team to the 2011 NBA championship and to the Larry Brown Trophy. But you have to realize something too, guys, is that to see what Luka Doncic has done throughout his rookie season, throughout his first few seasons as a baby Maverick, and I want to call it that because really that's really what he was. He didn't play in this country. He played overseas, and he came here via the draft. Really amazing stuff to see what he was able to do early on. But again, I want to talk about how a brand new coaching staff is here. The 2011 champion, Jason Kidd, is now leading the squad. And Rob DeLuca knows all about Jason Kidd because he still is a New Jersey Nets fan. But they've been gone for a while, DeLuca. Why are you still rooting for the New Jersey Nets? What's the matter with you?
Because Jason Kidd is a god amongst men. That's why, okay? But because Jason Kidd's the greatest point guard of all time. I don't even care. Obviously that's not true, but I don't even care.
Fans will agree.
Yeah, all Nets fans will agree. You're absolutely right, Mike. Obviously, that's not true. Don't care. For Doncic, well-deserved contract. Everyone knew the Supermax was coming. Earned every penny of it. He's one of the best players in the league already, and it's going to be a lot of fun watching him for the next decade plus.
But we speak about also Kemba, I want to get to the Knicks in just a moment, but Kevin Durant signed a 4-year extension to Luka with your New Jersey Nets. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. The Brooklyn Nets.
Color me shocked that this actually happened. Okay. I am thrown that these guys that at least one of them want to stay here when this all blows up next year and they don't win the finals again. So I am very thrilled. I'm ecstatic that Kevin Durant wants to stay. It's great to have the best player in the NBA want to play for you when he's healthy. So nonetheless, Nets got to get the job done. It's that simple. That's what they're built for. They're built for right now. Do it right now.
Mike, what do you think about DeLuca's New Jersey Nets? Where are they headed?
I think it's championship or bust next year. And I think if it wasn't for the fact that Kyrie Irving and James Harden weren't fully healthy, if those two were fully healthy, they would have steamrolled to the finals. And if it wasn't for KD's big shoe, they would have taken out the eventual NBA champion Milwaukee Bucks. So watching that live,
had to bring up the shoe. He really did. Had to say the shoe.
Next time, get size 10 instead of size 11.
Guys, I want to move over it back into to Madison Square Garden and Brian Morales. Wait, JJ, you said it and teased it well. Kemba. Yes, absolutely. But also before we get to Kemba, Brian said, ooh, brother, Jason Kidd, best Knicks point
Watch
guard
yourself,
in the last
Morales.
20 years.
I mean, granted, he's right though. Was the best Knicks point guard in the last 15 to 20 years. Not even a question.
Well,
and he was fit. He was like 50 by the time he got to
Kemba Walker was bought out by the Oklahoma City Thunder. He signs with the hometown Knicks. You've got Cardiac Kemba returning to the world's most famous arena. We got to see him, obviously, 2011.
I can't believe you didn't get the clip for this.
That is true. I should have. Big East tournament time, 2011.
Cardiac.
Yeah, all good things there. Zabo, you got to see what this Knicks team has done under Tom Thibodeau. And now seeing Cardiac Kemba make his hometown debut this upcoming campaign. What does this do for Knicks fans? And not only that, ticket prices too.
Well, yeah, the ticket prices are going to soar. MSG is certainly going to be a must watch or a must place for people to get into and buy tickets. And it's going to be a huge demand for it ahead of what they hope is going to be big expectations for the next season. It's great to see a New York City-born kid coming home, playing for the hometown team. Of course, everybody remembers the legendary days at Rice High School and the insane numbers that he put up there, and the great games that they had in, unfortunately, that defunct school. But yeah, it's a great move for the Knicks, who we've mentioned about Jason Kidd being the greatest point guard they've had in the last 20 years. That just says it all. They've had their point guard, their struggle trying to find a point guard, and now they have a great one in Kemba Walker. When he's healthy, he's one of the better point guards in the league. And pairing him with Derrick Rose, who's found a little bit of rejuvenation at the back end of his career, the Knicks actually have some nice point guards in their lineup.
Yeah, it's really something else. And something here too with Brian Morales for $8 million. Say it with me. Steal, steal. Well, and then I want to go back to a couple here. Mark Jackson, Kemba, Starberry. Oh boy. And then you've got best New York point guard in Knicks history. There you go. We'll see what happens there. But there's also some rumors, guys, here about Kemba Walker too. That apparently he might have given up $20 million in that contract buyout with the Thunder to go home. That's something else. He gave up $20 million. Clearly, you don't care about the money at that point, guys. There's no doubt about it.
You're confident in what Thibodeau's building. That's all it says.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
Yeah, that or playing at home. Playing home means that much to you.
Well, I mean, again, Cardiac Kemba going back to the site of the 2011 Big East tournament, championship. All good things there with what he did with UConn. But it is now time to welcome our good friend, Evan Winter. Evan, good to see you, sir. And I know Ian is definitely missing you here tonight, but that's okay. He can be on vacation. Evan, thank you so much for coming on here, buddy.
Gentlemen, what's up? Thanks for having me back on. It's a pleasure to be here, and I hope everyone's doing well.
Everyone's doing okay over here. I mean, I could speak for myself here, but I know DeLuca and Mike are. But Evan, grateful to have you here with us. I hope you're able to get your boy to sleep tonight. And yeah, I mean, and I'm assuming you did since you're here with us.
Actually, no, he's up and running around like crazy right now, but it's okay. My wife's a tough woman, obviously, so she's got him handled. He's under control.
Oh, thank goodness. All right. Well,
already rebelling. He's already out there.
Well, thank you very much, Mrs. Winter. That's some good stuff there. So Mike Szabo, Evan Winter, really happy to have you on here. Ladies and gentlemen, Evan Winter, lead writer of the Bucks Report for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Guys, let's get things moving forward here on our NFC South preview. Guys, I want to start off with, obviously, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because they are the defending Super Bowl champs. And Evan, you were down at training camp down in Tampa. And talk about what you got to see down there. I mean, we keep seeing the reports how AB is really turning back into maybe 2018 AB. The Tom Brady, Antonio Brown tandem might just be looking really good.
No, AB's looked great, and he looked really good in the practices that I watched him while he was down there. He was late to the first two practices for whatever reason. Bruce Arians never really clarified that, but outside of that, he was awesome. There was even one really cool moment where him and Tom had a miscommunication on one-on-one receiver cornerback drills. And AB was so fired up. I mean, this is how competitive the dude is. He was literally walking back on the fourth on the sideline, screaming stuff like, "I don't waste reps." Like he was fired up, man. It was cool to see. But apparently since I left, and it's probably because I left, he's been on fire. A lot of people are backing up the talk that he could very well lead the team in targets, could be the Bucs' #1 receiver. And when you look at what he did last year, he actually led the team in targets, just barely, but he led the team over those final 8 games, including the playoffs. It wouldn't be a shock. But, man, right now, Chris Godwin, first off, breaking news, he's a great receiver, awesome. Just how the dude runs his routes and what he's able to do in terms of body control and just obviously catching the ball as well. It's just simply off the charts. But Mike Evans right now, and since I've left, I've read the same thing. I'm not trying to base everything in the first week that I was down there, but he is in midseason form. The dude is snagging balls out of the air, beating people deep. I mean, he's making Carlton Davis, who is genuinely a solid corner in this league. He's making him look silly. So it's been a lot of fun. But at the same time, the offense has been pretty inconsistent. And Tom Brady, while I was down there, he did not look like the Tom Brady we saw over the last 8 weeks of last year. And obviously today, I don't know if y'all saw, but Bruce Arians called today's offensive practice the worst he's seen in 3 years. Ooh. So he obviously wasn't talking about 2018 because he was retired then. So I'm thinking 3 seasons, and guess what? Yes. That puts us in 2019. And guess who the quarterback was in 2019? So no, that's just me like taking a stab. But no, seriously though, I mean, and you could also credit that to the defense. So the defenses look great. But yeah, man. So it's gonna be interesting to see how these next few weeks play out for sure.
That's really crazy. And you know, we got to see also something, and I want to just throw this over to Madden. And why I say that is because I'm assuming, Evan, you got to see some of the rankings too with linebackers and whatnot. And Devin White was not in the top 10. And I remember when you were on here multiple times in the past, we got to talk about how Devin White is really just the underrated guy, and he shows up in the Super Bowl, and Levante David is just, the guy that continues to just be the underrated linebacker of this squad. And now Devin White is really beginning to, to make his name known. And, on Madden, he's not in the top 10. And I know we've spoken about this over and over again, but how mind-boggling is that when you got to see that?
It's pretty surprising. And considering especially what he did in the playoffs, Madden is always known for recency bias. And the playoff run that he had, I mean, I can't remember the exact records off the top of my head that he set, but it was just insane stuff. And he was always around the ball. He made plays. Even when he wasn't the catalyst of the play being made, he still contributed in a major way. I mean, case in point was Antoine Winfield's strip of Jared Cook in the divisional round. Well, guess who picked up the fumble? Devin White. Right. I believe whenever Jordan Whitehead forced the fumble in the Packers, my memory might be a little fuzzy, but Devin White, I believe, was there to pick up the fumble. Either way, he had a fumble recovery in that game, if that's not the exact moment. So the dude just went on a crazy run. He's showing just amazing strides in terms of his pass coverage. And then all of a sudden, Madden leaves him out to dry like that. But you know what? At the end of the day, all it's going to do is motivate him. He's already motivated enough. So this is just going to put the icing on the cake. And so far in camp, you want to talk about looking good. He was one of my top $5 through the first 9 or 10 practices. He looked great. He even had an awesome pick off of Tom Brady. Granted, it was Brady's fault, and that kind of leads back to what I was saying about him looking inconsistent throughout camp so far. But still, at the end of the day, Devin White still made the play. That's all that matters. So, yeah, man, I mean, Madden's going to Madden at the end of the day. But like I said, as long as it's fueling the fires of this team, hey, I'm all here for it.
Before we get to DeLuca and to Zabo about the rest of the Buccaneers, Evan, you got to see, you were talking about Carlton Davis and how, you kind of hesitated there when you said, average cornerback. And, towards the latter part of the season, we kind of got to see him really find his groove. And, you were saying that he was getting torched by Antonio Brown this training camp so far, or wherever we are now. We're just a few days away before the first preseason game. Do you see him returning to, weeks 1 through 5, Carlton Davis, where, he was just getting torched left and right by wide receivers?
No, he's a solid corner in this league. He's easily top 12. And I mean, and when I talk about him getting beat in camp, he's also won plenty of reps himself. At the end of the day, you want an ebb and flow when it comes to training camp. You don't want one side of the ball dominating the other side. So it's been off and on, but at the same time, he's also going against guys like Mike Evans and Antonio Brown. Now, granted, to Jalen Darden's credit, the 4th round pick out of North Texas this year, he's burnt Carlton a few times. But at the end of the day, if there's one thing that hinders Carlton, and I think he would even agree with this, is he doesn't have top-end speed. I mean, we saw it with Tyreek Hill, all that other stuff last year. I mean, everybody remembers that. The Bucs sure as hell did. So – I mean, when he's got his deficiencies at the end of the day, but no, overall, he's solid, man. And I think, going into a contract year, last year was the best year of his career, and he's shown growth each year, especially with interceptions. Him not making interceptions was one of the knocks coming out of college, whatever that means at the end of the day. I mean, it's kind of like fumble recoveries. There's a certain amount of luck that goes into it at the end of the day. But either way, he's looked solid so far in camp. And like I said, when you're going against guys like that, you're going to get bested from time to time. It's all about how you respond, and he's responded well.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And also, ladies and gentlemen, for those that are watching, all Buccaneers fans, all NFC South fans, please send your questions into our chat. Wherever you might be watching, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, on Zingo Television, please give Evan some questions here. But we're going to turn it over to DeLuca and to Mike Zabo. Guys, take it away for Evan here.
Yeah, Evan, thanks again for coming on. Always good to see you. I mean, let's just jump right into it here. NFC South is looking a little different this year. For the first time in 15, 20 years, Drew Brees is no longer the quarterback of the New Orleans Saints. So obviously that's raising some question marks down there in New Orleans. But for the Buccaneers, with a change like that, and it really only being a race between the Buccaneers and the Saints for the past 2 years, what do the Buccaneers have to do to remain on top once again with all of these changes coming to the NFC South? Quarterback change in Carolina, no less, and Atlanta only getting older. What do the Bucs have to do as not only division champs but Super Bowl champs to maintain that dominance that they have put on the NFC South now?
I think they've got to keep the offense diversified like they did over the last 8 weeks of the season. They've got to continue to protect Brady. If that offensive line sticks up like it did in the playoffs and performs like it did, I mean, they were literally moving bodies in the playoffs, then, I mean, that's going to be the ultimate key to the offensive success at the end of the day, in my opinion. But, man, really, I mean, assuming everything picks up where they left off. Now, granted, there'll probably be some rust in the beginning. I mean, that's how it always goes. But assuming everybody has their heads on straight, their focus, their mentality, and how they execute, especially with not committing penalties. But really, if the Bucs can pick up where they left off in those regards, all they have to do is stay healthy. I mean, now, granted, this is the NFL, and that's extremely hard to do. But they've also been a top 2 team in terms of adjusted games lost when it comes to injuries. It's a stat that Football Outsiders uses. They actually led the league last year in the NFL. So granted, again, it's the NFL. If you have 2 years of insanely good injury luck like that, you're kind of just waiting for the levees to break. But they have a great sports science team over there. They have a great training staff. So, you think the ball and the odds are both in Tampa Bay's court when it comes to doing that. But back to your point about the Saints, man, it's going to be so weird seeing either Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill out there as the starting quarterback. And it's going to be even weirder not seeing Joe Lombardi on the sidelines because he has been there since 2007. So all of a sudden, and I wrote about this a little bit today on BucsReport.com, is that you've got 66% of the Saints, masterminds behind the offense just all of a sudden gone. Now, granted, Sean Payton's still there. I think he's one of the top 3 head coaches in the league, possibly even top 2. But at the same time, how much can he get done at the end of the day in terms of what these 2 quarterbacks can do? Because they're both great athletes. Obviously, they both have insane amounts of talent. However, they're both limited in certain regards. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And plus all the injuries and all that stuff. But man, really, Rob, at the end of the day, I mean, like I said, as long as everything goes as well as it should in terms of things Tampa Bay can control, then, like I said, all I got to do is stay healthy, and they should win this division with not with ease, but with more ease than, let's say, in 2007, the last time they won it.
Yeah, Evan. Just to what is it going to take with the schedule that the Buccaneers have been given this year? Because obviously, if they come out to the start that they did last year, it's very while the NFC South, the rest of them is a little weaker.
I don't see that.
If they, I don't see it happening per se. But what needs to happen differently to avoid that cold start that they had at the beginning of the year? Like as you said, there will be some rust in the beginning. What can they do to potentially avoid something like that, therefore allowing this to be more of a race than it actually should be?
So they started off 4-1. They lost that first game against the Saints, and then they lost the terrible game in Chicago, which dropped them to 4. Or no, sorry, they started 3-1. I apologize, and then dropped to 3-2 in Chicago, and then blew out Green Bay. And after that, they went through the slump against the Rams, the Vikings, and then I can't think of and then the Saints again. That's right. I tend to burn that game out of my memory,
Yes.
but
we all did.
You're right, exactly. But either way, I mean, yeah, what caused their regression at certain points in the season was just a lack of cohesiveness, a lack of continuity, Brady learning a new playbook, and also Arians and the coaching staff adjusting to Brady and Brady adjusting to them. Also, they lost Ali Marpet during the really bad stretch when they lost to the Saints, and the Chiefs and the Rams. No, sorry, he was back for the Chiefs game. I apologize. But when they lost to the Rams, he was still out. So that really affected them. There was just kind of like a myriad of things that happened from like weeks 5 to week 13 that kind of affected them. And honestly, they got pretty damn lucky against the Vikings too. If it weren't for Dan Bailey missing 10 kicks in that game, obviously I'm over exaggerating, but
I remember that vividly.
Yeah, man. I mean,
God.
If he makes those kicks, which he should have, it's not like he was out there trying to boot 65 yarders. Then that game's completely different. Who knows how it works out? So there is a lot that went into last season. The main thing though is they just got to stay disciplined. And so far, while I was down there throughout camp, they were pretty disciplined. The reports I've read since I've been back, they've remained there for the most part. But as long as they can just, like I said, and I hate to be cliche, but control what they can control, then they'll be fine. But they've got to show that they can do that too, especially with the target on their back. I mean, y'all all know. You've watched football. Once you win the Super Bowl, things change. They absolutely change. Everybody approaches you different. They're going to bring their A game. So, at the end of the day, just do what they did last year and they'll be fine, as basic as that sounds. But also, real quick tidbit, while I was down there in camp, and Bruce Arians actually shut me down. I asked him about it, but I totally get it. They were out there. The Bucs were running a lot of stacked receiver formations. They would even stack like Gio Bernard, even Leonard Fournette at times behind a Mike Evans. And they would have Antonio Brown, Rob Gronkowski, and Chris Godwin on the other side in a bunch set. They were doing a ton of pre-snap motion, a lot of play action. So it looks like they're really expanding on those elements that worked so well toward the end of last year. When I asked Bruce about that, he said, man, that's what we've been doing the last 15 years. So, I get it. But at the same time, and yes, that is true. But at the same time, you go back and look at the numbers. Before the last 6 to 8 weeks of last year, Tampa Bay was one of the lowest rates in the league when it came to using play action and pre-snap motion. So there's a little bit behind the observation there.
Yeah, no Mike Szabo, take it away.
Yeah, hey, Evan, great to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well, man.
With Tom Brady, you mentioned about him in camp. Is there any concern about him starting off potentially slow? We always knew he had a reputation in New England. At least the first couple of weeks, they'd still be going through their progressions. And, Tom Brady was always that prototypical guy that, he starts off slower, but then, at the end of the season, he always has his best stuff. Is there any concern potentially about him and how uneven he maybe looks in training camp? And with probably the Saints being their biggest challenge, what's the Tampa kind of outlook on the view of the Michael Thomas situation and what's going on with that? Potentially, their best receiver, other than Alvin Kamara, their best offensive player, involved in this huge turmoil with the front office.
Yeah, so the thing with Tom Brady, I wouldn't say it's concerning right now. I mean, it's still early in camp. A lot can change, so on and so forth. But it is something I would definitely monitor. Like I'm saying, and he's obviously coming off I think the first time he's ever had to rehab, or he said the first time he's ever rehabbed in 17 years, something like that. Yep. So this just hasn't been his normal off season. I mean, granted, last year wasn't either, and we saw how he started off slow, came out of the gate slow, and all that other stuff. I mean, it's definitely something to monitor at this point. Like I said, he just did not look like the Tom Brady that, we've come to know, we saw, especially over those last 8 weeks that I keep talking about. But so while I wouldn't put any kind of concern on it right now, I would definitely pay attention to it and definitely read all the reports coming out, to see what they have to say, especially after today with the offense having such a bad day. And it's funny because I used yesterday as a day to read up on the Bengals. And right now, up until this past Saturday, that offense has just looked like, something you'd find out in your backyard that your dog left for you. And Joe Burrow, apparently, he even admitted to it, is having issues, anticipating rush, feeling all that stuff from his knee and all that good stuff. So it's funny how those are kind of intertwining right now. But definitely pay attention to the Tom Brady thing when it comes to Michael Thomas. So I'm going to go a little bit into my fan side on here because I am a Bucs fan at the end of the day, but I try to remain objective in my analysis. Dude, Tampa Bay fans are delighted right now. And, you never want to wish injury on anybody, but there's a big beef right now, especially going on between Bucs fans and Saints, bigger than usual, especially after the division win last year, but the Saints winning – the division's playoff win last year, and as opposed to the Saints winning the division, they called Mike Thomas Slant Boy. Carlton Davis even called him it last year, literally tweeted it out. And right now, if you're a Bucs fan, you can't be more elated than how the Saints offseason has gone, especially with Jameis and his funny, goofy stretching videos, and then the one where he just gets his butt kicked by the tackling dummy pads whenever he tries to run through the gauntlet. But it is going to be interesting to see how the Saints adapt. And like you said, Mike, Alvin Kamara is now their best receiver on the team. He's going to carry that offense. I don't see it happening any other way unless Sean Payton just pulls several tricks out of his or from underneath his sleeve. So it's going to be interesting to see how all that develops.
That's really wild. Mike, you got any more for Evan?
That's it. It's going to be an interesting division. I think the Bucs should really be, probably favored in, and I don't know, unless something crazy happens, like Evan said, with health, they probably are the odds-on favorite.
Keep an eye on Atlanta, though, man. Like Arthur Smith, he is a really good coach. He's going to figure out how to get that offense going. Now, granted, the offensive line really has to step up. But he knows how to coach to his players' strengths. And before they traded Julio Jones, I thought Atlanta could be a huge dark horse in the NFC, especially if they can get the defensive side of things going. Now that Julio's gone, the shine has fallen off that a lot. However, still, they're going to cause some problems for some teams this year. I'm really, really intrigued with them to see how that all works out.
So now we actually do have a question here, and for Evan, he knows exactly who this is when I say this college, Wagner College in Staten Island. And the reason why we bring that up here is because our good friend, Director of Media Relations, Brian Morales, has a question about Cam Gill. So bringing it back to the Bucs defense, I have to ask Evan, what are your impressions of Cam Gill? What is his ceiling in your estimation and best comparison to date?
Yeah, he really turned it on towards the end of last year, and he was in on the sack with Ndamukong Suh on Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, and I was really looking forward to see what he could do when I was down there in that first training camp, but he's been sidelined now. I think he might have returned back to practice today. I'm not entirely sure on that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he was sidelined for about the last week when it came to training camp, so he's a little bit behind on the depth chart right now. But that being said, I mean, dude, you got to love the guy's speed. He's got the bend when it comes to being an outside edge rusher, and he's got the drive and determination. And at the end of the day, Bruce Arians loves grit more than anything else. He likes guys that are going to stick their nose in there, that's not going to be afraid to get hit. That's just all about being tough and reflecting, what the spirit of football is all about. And that's what Cam Gill also possesses. I mean, there's a reason why the Bucs kept him around and made him a protected player when he was on the practice squad last year and all that other good stuff. In terms of his ceiling, I need to see more snaps out of him. Obviously, as a reserve, he's not going to get that many chances. But like I said, he did look like he turned it on towards the end of last year. In terms of ceiling right now, I would say he could develop into a quality backup. But like I said, it's just kind of tough to say right now. However, if he didn't get back on the practice squad, which something is like pulling at me right now if he didn't get back on the practice field, which like I said, something that me is pulling at me, telling me that he did today. But if he's still out, you hope that he returns soon. But even if he doesn't, I think he's still a lock to make the Bucs practice squad this year. He might not make the 53, especially with Joe Tryon showing out like he's shown out. But he'll definitely be on the practice squad for sure.
Well, there you go. Brian Morales from Wagner College, Director of Media Relations. Thank you very much, B, for your question. Evan, I got a couple more for you here. And actually, DeLuca, I believe, has another one here for you.
Joey, you go ahead first, Joey.
Okay, so we'll close it out with DeLuca. But, Evan, obviously, we've got, exactly 1 month away from today is the opening game. Dallas against the Bucs, okay? We know all about it. We've been hearing that for the last ever since the Super Bowl finished, and Tom Brady, just raised yet another ring. So it's evident. We know that they've got also the Patriots on the schedule, the return to Foxborough for Tom. There's just so many good games on the schedule here. Evan, what sticks out? And I'm going to put you on the spot here. Aside from the Dallas game and aside from the Pats game, which game sticks out to you most of all?
The Bills are high up there. I think that's week. Let's see. It's so I still have to get used to this. There's 18 weeks in the season now. I want to say the Bills are week 14 or week 15, one of the two. But either way, the Bucs get them at home.
14,
Josh Allen right now just obviously played out of his mind last year. They're one of the hotter teams in the league. But honestly, there's one game that I am anticipating more than that, and it's the LA Rams in SoFi Stadium. I think it's week 5 that they have to go there. I think it's it's week 3, right before the Patriots game. And not only, is that game is going to be interesting, and that's my one big road game that I'm going to try to cover this year. I always try to make one long distance trip, dude. The stadium just looks sick. I mean, I'm not a materialistic person at the end of the day, but holy hell, if I can't get into that stadium and just play with all the nice shiny toys. But anyway, it's going to be interesting to see how the Bucs play in that game, going all the way to the West Coast, having to come back and then go up to New England. Because New England is no short trip in itself. So that's going to be a really interesting back-to-back slate. But the Rams and the Bills, man, for sure. Because that could be a potential NFC Championship preview. It could be a potential Super Bowl preview. And honestly, Matthew Stafford in that offense is one of my top 3 storylines this year. I cannot wait to see just and they don't even have to be good. They could completely suck. And I'm still completely intrigued to see how that turns out, because it has all the makings of a lot of fun at the end of the day.
Now, I have to ask you this as an Eagles fan, and I know DeLuca was probably asking you this too. So I guess the Eagles game was not a good one to go to, or maybe the Giants game was not a good one to go to.
Honestly, and this is probably going to hurt, but I think the Giants game has more intrigue than the Eagles game.
That is completely fair.
Of course it does, because it brings the factor of, are the New York Giants still Tom Brady's kryptonite or not?
Yeah, sure. I just want to see Joe Judge making everybody do push-ups on the sideline for 5 minutes straight. That's just what I want to see.
I love it.
And then Evan, and then you get to see everybody just walk out following practice, right? Or retire.
Exactly.
Good Lord.
Pulling Vontae Davis.
Say, Evan, my last question for you, man. Nose tackle Vita Vea. How does he look? And we obviously, the last time we saw him, you spoke about the Chicago Bears game. That was the last time we got to see him week 5 last year. There were some talks. Maybe he might be able to come back for the Super Bowl. Did not happen. Where is his ceiling this year, and how good can he make this defense heading into 2021?
Yeah, well, he actually did come back for the NFC Championship.
Yes.
Yeah, he just played super limited snaps, but yeah, either way. But yeah, and at the end of the day, he still wasn't 100%. But at this point, he is 100%. Bruce Arians said he still needs to lose 3 to 4 pounds, but at the end of the day, a guy that big, what's 3 to 4 pounds? But while I was down there in training camp, and this is just how insanely athletic he is for a 6'3", 347-pound nose tackle. He literally, Ronald Jones broke off this run going up the far left sideline. Vita Vea literally, after shedding his block, chased Ronald Jones down from behind. And to cap it off, he lost his shorts at the end of the play too, which was really funny. But he literally chased Ronald Jones down from the line of scrimmage to 15 yards downfield. It was just absolutely ridiculous. And this guy, Todd Bowles said it best during his interview the day after he just received his 3-year extension. He said, Vita is great to have around because he gets double teamed, but he also beats double teams. So, it's just the best of both worlds. And dude, if he's healthy for all 16 games, this defense is just completely different. He is the difference between this defense being very, very good and this defense being elite. And when he's on the field, it just allows them to do so much more with their pass rush and just coverage schemes in general and blitz packages. So far, so good, and just keep your fingers crossed because he's had injury issues every single year. He missed his first 2 training camps. He missed the first 4 games of his rookie year. And then last year, obviously, the fractured ankle. So, you just hope that you can get a full healthy year out of him. And if that's the case, then this defense, the sky is the absolute limit.
Quick rapid fire for you, Evan. Unbiased. We need your numbers 1 through 4.
That's the
as
one.
DeLuca always says. So you know what, DeLuca? I will let you take it away because that is your segment. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we do it. We've been doing it every week ever since we started these division previews.
That is true.
Yeah, Evan, real quick, 1 to 4, how do you feel in 17-game season? What's the Bucks record? What's their seed? And what are they doing with that?
So right now, I've got them at 12-5. That's because their record is just so damn easy. But at the same time, the things that I've seen in training camp, and granted, like I said, it's first week, but there's a lot left to be desired. The Super Bowl target on their back is huge. And then you've also got to think at some point someone's going to get hurt. You got to factor in injuries. So I'm going to go with a modest 12-5. I know there's a lot of people out there saying 14-3, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, there's also a rough patch they go through. I think it's weeks 4 to 9 where they've got to play it's weeks 3 to 9 where they got to play a lot of road games. And if they can come out of that just above 500, they'll be fine. But either way, I still think they're going to be one of the top 5 teams in the league. 12-5. They win the division. Is that good enough to get the overall 1 seed? Probably not. And there's probably going to be a team in a weaker division like right off the top of my head, maybe that NFC North, with the Packers. Who knows what's going to happen with Mr. COVID in Minnesota, and the Lions we know just aren't going to do anything. And then the Bears, Andy Dalton. That's all I got to say. So there's a great chance that a team like the Packers in a worse division could capitalize and get that number 1 seed. Right now, though, I would say number 2 seed. And then let's hope the Packers get upset so they can get home field throughout. So that would be my prediction. And if we're just going to go ahead, and you probably didn't ask this, Rob, but I'm just going to go and throw it out there because I just feel like doing it now. But right now, if I had to pick, I would say they do get to the Super Bowl. Yeah. And they will repeat. I mean, there's.
Oh, I did ask you that. So yeah,
okay, cool. Okay, well, you're getting it anyway. No, but I mean, just right now, and this is all bias aside, I swear. 2003 was awesome going in then because the Bucks only lost Dexter Jackson. Granted, he was the Super Bowl MVP, but that's the only player they lost going in. But then, just injury after injury, close game after close game, things just absolutely went downhill. The locker room started fighting, all that stuff. There's too much leadership in this locker room to let something like that get too far. And right now, man, it is just so hard not to feel bulletproof going into this season. Like I said, the injuries are there, but just from how everything's coming along, the rookies outside of Kyle Trask and a few others, man, like I said, it's just so hard not to feel bulletproof going into the season. I think there's going to be a couple of times where the Bucks get bested and you don't expect it, but that's football. But right now, I have them repeating. There's no reason to think they won't.
Just keep in mind, there is one game that sticks out, and that is the Philadelphia game.
Always.
I'm kidding. They are going to best the Eagles 45-0. That is happening. Ladies and gentlemen, lead writer of the Bucks Report for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Make sure you visit his site, Bucks Report, thebucksreport.com. Evan, thank you so much for spending about 33 minutes of your time here on the Primetime Rundown. As always, you're like a good friend to us, man. We really appreciate you coming on as always.
Yeah, like I said, thanks for having me on. Definitely, hey, when the Eagles are playing the Bucks, we're going to have to get together on my side of things and definitely have to have a little throwdown and talk some football for sure. And anytime y'all want to talk, I'm always down. So let's
absolutely,
get it going.
Evan.
And Mike, it is nice meeting you, man.
Yeah, same here.
Go be with your son. We'll see you soon. Thanks so much again.
See you guys. Take it easy.
Thanks, man. You too. So, ladies and gentlemen, of course, a great session with Mike Szabo. Guys, let us get unfortunately, we don't really have enough time for Lionel Messi, but we do know that there were a lot of tears. He's heading over to PSG, and there was big picture, obviously, of him with the Eiffel Tower. Really weird stuff to see on my side of things, and I know for you guys as well. I know Mike is a big soccer fan as well, so really that's definitely some odd things to see. Guys, I want to get to our kudos. Mike Szabo, let's get to you first and let me know when to play the video.
Yeah, so right after I'll just I have a little intro for it.
Please do.
My kudos for for this week for this show is the U.S. men's national team in soccer last Sunday getting that Gold Cup final win over Mexico. 2 finals this summer that the U.S. Men's soccer team has gotten. 2 final wins over Mexico. They had the Nations League win with Christian Pulisic and all of their A-list guys back in June in Denver. So they won the Nations League there, and then they came into the Gold Cup with a bunch of experimental guys. They rotated the squad, and a bunch of guys who were MLS guys or lower Europe. You could really call it their B or C team, whatever you want to call it. They were able to run the table in the tournament and go all the way to the final and beat basically the same Mexico team that their A guys beat in June. It was incredible to watch. I honestly did not expect it coming into the final. I thought they did great, and then the final hit Mexico would probably best them. But it was an absolutely incredible performance. Second youngest team in American soccer history in a major tournament final at 24 years, 236 days. It was only second to that Nations League team back in June. So the youth movement coming around, it was really inspiring to see. And you can show the clip now. Just an incredible goal. I was watching it, and the delight, because you didn't expect it to happen. And then when it did right there at extra time, because I thought if they were going to go to penalties, wasn't going to happen. But that goal was just unbelievable, an unbelievable moment in U.S. soccer history. I think it shows a shift in balance in power in CONCACAF.
All right, here we go. Let's take a peek at the first 20 seconds of this clip here with Miles Robinson.
He went down. He was stretching out his right calf. He's back to his feet. Calvin Acosta to take. 117th minute. Acosta hooks it into the traffic. A free header, and it's a goal! The United States has scored! Miles Robinson!
Yeah, and you know what? And because of, and obviously I would have played the whole video, but just because of time constraints, I had to cut that short. But that honestly gave me the chills. That really
I got
did.
I got chills right now because I was watching right along live. I got them then, and I got them right now again.
That's really amazing. Really amazing stuff to see. Rob DeLuca, let's get your kudos.
Yeah, looks like another year, another broadcasting legend retiring from the game of hockey. Mike Lang, 46 amazing years as the Pittsburgh Penguins radio play-by-play man. Congratulations on your retirement. Your voice is known to more than just Penguins fans. It's known to hockey fans all around. You're one of the viral voices out there. You go onto YouTube, hear top broadcasting clips. His name, you're going to hear his voice right there with some of his signature goal calls. You know, he shoots and scores. You got to scratch his back with a hacksaw. Tell his grandma to get in the fast lane because the bingo game is starting. And for one final time, ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has left the building. Thank you, Mike Lang.
Really amazing, amazing stuff. And you've heard plenty of critics of Mike Lang and opposers of Mike Lang. And I am not an opposer. I love that man. It was absolutely fantastic, and I really wish him the best in retirement as well. My kudos goes to the United States of America. 113 overall medals in this year's Summer Olympics. Absolutely phenomenal. They beat out China, who had 88 on the season, and 113 medals this year. Guys,
I think the gold medal race with China, Joey, was something spectacular.
39-38, yeah.
It was 38-36 going into the final night with only about 5 events left, and China had a gold medal opportunity. And
they blew it. So really, really crazy stuff, fellas. But ladies and gentlemen, that has concluded our show. Let us pay a couple of bills here. So tomorrow night, the Essential Wrestling Podcast will return at its normal time live Tuesday, August 10th at 6 p.m. The show is presented to you by ProWrestlingPick'em.com. Join our guys, Al Carl, Ryan Joy, John DeConnie, John Smith, and Gary Miheffi as they take you through the world of wrestling. Also, they will be back on August 21st, Saturday at 3 p.m. for their WWE SummerSlam special. That's going to take place right here on the Eastern Observer as well. Saturday, August 21st, starting at 3 p.m. Also, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to start your morning every single morning with the Daily Wrestling News Show at 10 a.m. Eastern Time with your host, Ryan Joy. Minutes to Bell Time is the creator. Presented to you by Minutes to Bell Time, rather. That can be seen right here on the Eastern Observer, Monday through Thursday, starting at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Also, one more time, ladies and gentlemen, please subscribe to us by searching the Primetime Rundown on the following platforms: Google Play, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and YouTube by searching the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. All great things ahead here for this show. Next week, we will be previewing the AFC East, and it's going to be a damn fun one. We're going to have Ian Schraier back with us following a 2-week break. It's going to be tons of fun. Ladies and gentlemen, and also Mike Szabo, cannot thank you enough for joining us here tonight and coming in here in place of Ian Schraier.
Yep, absolutely. Always great to talk with you guys. I'm always down to talk some great sports. So thanks for having me on.
There's no doubt about it. Ladies and gentlemen, one final time for my guys. My goodness, I can't even speak anymore. For my guys, Rob DeLuca and Mike Szabo, for all of us at the Eastern Observer, as well as the Blackjack Media Group, I'm Joey Jarzynka. We'll see you next time.